What's up, everybody? Excited to bring this workout to you guys, and also just kind of an interesting thought process around recovering from failure. First off, I want to say that you got to realize that failure is actually a really good thing. Now, the second that you can realize that failure is actually a positive thing, losing can be learning, then you're going to be accelerating your career rapidly fast. If I, in my life, let losing get to me, too much, those were the times I set myself back the most, and I didn't allow myself to really improve at the level that I was capable of improving at. So first and foremost, understand failure is a good thing. Setback is a good thing. Matter of fact, one of the best countries at the sport of wrestling is Russia, and I'm USA, obviously, all the way. USA, hate the Russians. Okay, get that right. But that doesn't mean we can't learn from the Russians. And one of the things they say they do a lot is they train to failure. So even if that was practicing a piece of technique, okay, over and over and over and over, failure, or failing on a piece of technique and failing, okay, and then figuring it out. And so failure, guys, is a good thing. It's how you learn. It's how you get better. That being said, I just did a crazy workout, and it was literally, it was a high interval workout. So it started off with a tire, a sledgehammer on the tire. So I went 10 each arm, so 10 each side, ripped my core up really. And then I had a burpee complex where I had to do a burpee into a lunge, into a frog hop jump, into a burpee frog hop jump. Okay, I had to do that 20 yards. And then I had to put my feet on these little sliders and kind of do like a seal walk all the way down 20 yards, flexing, my core, keeping my legs straight. And then I had to do about a 200-something pound sled push, really burn the big muscle groups on the way back those 20 yards. And then that was comboed with 60-pound sandbag, sandball, that I had to do a lunge 20 yards down, alternating legs. And then that was complexed combined with it's called a skier, and you do these big lat pull downs, and you're like, it's almost like a rower, but it's from your arms. So your arms and your core are being used, and your legs. Okay, so skiers, so pull downs, and then that was comboed into lunge step ups. So each one took me about 5 minutes to finish, and at the end of each one, my heart rate was about 179. Okay, and I'm pretty much maxed out, and I'm pretty much falling on the floor, dead tired. At the end of 5 minutes, complete failure. If I was to keep going, I probably would have to slow down a ton to be able to keep going. So max effort, complete failure, really good thing for my body, because it's gonna train my body to be able to handle high levels of stress. And the more I do it, the more it's going to be able to handle, essentially. So that was my workout today, and that was how I went to failure. I had to do that 5 times through, and it was a grind. You can check out my Instagram story, All In Journal, or at Levi_Jones trained All In. Find me on Instagram, and you can see that workout. It was a pretty good one. It's on my story. Or you guys can DM me or whatever, and I'll send you that workout. Anyway, it was an awesome one, and it reminded me of failure and how important it is to go to failure. You guys are out there, and you're chasing your dream constantly, but there's a good chance you're not pushing yourself to failure enough. One of the best teammates I've ever had in my entire life is a guy named Adam Hall. And Adam and I, you wouldn't say we're like best buddies, like best friends. All of our teammates, we were all close, but we weren't like, we didn't like live in the same home, and, we weren't like hanging out all the time. But inside that wrestling room, man, did we train hard. And it was my job almost always to keep up with Adam Hall. My coach, Greg Randall, we'd be doing a run workout, and, he'd be yelling at me to keep up with Adam. And, Coach Owens would be like, he'd be calling me out like, hey, you go with Adam, and even though Adam was a bigger guy, sometimes I always knew, like, when I was going to go with Adam, like, oh boy, like, I was going to push myself to failure. And he was just that kind of kid. He wouldn't just be interested in breaking you. He'd be interested in breaking himself, physically, sometimes mentally, sometimes emotionally. And because he did this, he was extremely well enduranceed. His mental toughness was off the charts. And he just knew that he could go into what we call deep, dark waters. Deep, dark waters is where you want to take people when you're competing against them. But you can't do that unless you're going there, at least once or twice or maybe 3 times a week inside your training. So you got to go to failure. He was a guy that knew how to go to failure, and I watched him benefit from it tenfold. He went on to, get his PhD. I mean, he's that kind of kid that would push himself academically. He went on to coach Division I wrestling at NC State. They later went on with a lot of his recruiting skills and his ability to still train and wrestle. He was a big part of their success. And then them going on and winning a trophy at the NCAA Division I championship, placing 4th place. And just an amazing story, from a guy that, I went to college with, and he's just going on to do great things in the sport of wrestling. And he always has, even when he was in college, couple-time All-American, always pushing to beat the national champions. I mean, he was the guy that was, in a lot of ways, leading our team, not with his words, but by example, by his example of putting his body through extreme training. At moments, he trained very smart, but at moments, he'd go extreme, and he would take his body to failure. That's what today's message is about. If you want to break your opponents, if you want to take the spirit out of their soul as you're wrestling them, then you got to take them to a dark place, but you got to be able to go to that dark place regularly in your training. It's one of the hardest things to do. I can tell you from experience that this is one of the toughest things to do in your training, especially if you don't have a coach pushing you. So coaches, if you're out there, you got to be willing to take people past their limits. You have to be, and then better yet, you have to be willing to do it yourself. You got to be willing to go to those, dark places yourself in your own training. Live by example, and your wrestlers will follow. Wrestlers, if you're listening, then you got to go all in. I love it. All in is a choice. Okay, it's a lifestyle, it's a choice. I know it's a saying, but you got to live it. You got to go all in, and you got to be willing to go to that dark place and go to failure. I don't care, even if you're doing technique, do so many reps that eventually you're starting to fail. Okay, eventually your body's breaking down. Sometimes you need that. You don't need that all the time, but sometimes you need that. Today's workout reminded me of that, guys, and I just wanted to give a quick shout out to all my wrestling fans. You got to push yourself to failure. A lot of times you're going to get in on shots. Guys are going to block your shot, and you got to be able to have a second attempt, a third attempt, a fourth attempt, a fifth attempt, a sixth attempt. You got to be able to keep coming. You got to be able to keep transitioning from move to move, from shot to reshot, from shot blocked to a recovery shot. Okay, you got to be able to take your wrestling to the next level simply by being willing in your training to go to failure. Today's message is embrace failure, guys. Go all in and embrace failure, because it's going to set you up for success when it comes competition time. I love you guys. I'm thankful for you guys being a part of my channel, a part of my podcast, following me on Instagram, following this big following of All In. If you guys don't ever buy anything from me, that's okay. I'm not on here to sell you guys. I'm on here to give you guys value. That being said, if you want to buy something, I'm 100% okay with it. I'm not going to become a millionaire off of you guys buying my stuff. I simply created it to make a genuine, life-changing, shock the world impact with the All In Journal and the All In Wrestling System. Now, use it, embrace it, apply it to your training, and allow your body to go to failure. Put yourself in that position, and you'll start putting yourself in position to stand on top of the podium at the end of the year. Take care, guys. All In.